Hey guys, I'd like to welcome everyone to this meetup. Gonna wait a few more minutes just to see if anyone is late joining us. But today we're going to talk about practical keyword research methods. It's mainly based around new content as opposed to existing content. So I suppose the main point to take away from this is if you're interested in starting a blog, or if you're interested in doing a lot of new content on your website in order to increase the amount of traffic that you get onto your website, this is a great way of coming up with your own process and method. I'm going to walk through some great ideas that I do, that I've done for a long time now, but I'm also going to talk about a little bit more than basic keyword research, which is zero-click SERPs, and competitor analysis, which is a little bit more in depth than just basic keyword research. But I also do think that it's important to talk about just so you are aware of what they are and how you can leverage the power behind them when you're creating new content and you've gotten a hold of practical keyword research methods that you feel comfortable around. So although this is around new content, it's also a good process to get started with, even if you have existing content on your website. So although it's not 100% practical keyword research for existing content, the processes that I talk about here are a good place to start when updating old content on your website as well, which is important to have as part of your strategy. I am going to take questions at the end of the presentation, but at the same time, if you do have a question that you really need to have answered, please do leave a comment in the live chat and I'll definitely keep an eye on it. I'm the only person here at the moment doing the presentation, keeping an eye on the live chat. So do keep in mind that if I haven't seen your comment or if I haven't answered it within, a decent amount of time, it's just because my mind is trying to do two things at once. So it looks like everyone is here. So what I'm going to do is share my screen, if I can figure out how to do that. And we're going to get started in today's presentation. So for all the tools and the resources that I talk about in this presentation, I will include them all with links to the resources in the slides afterwards, when I send around the email with the presentation slides. So don't feel like you need to be Googling them as I talk about them. I will provide screenshots for the tools and I will try and talk through the important parts of the tools from a keyword research perspective. But if you have any additional questions, please do let me know at the end and I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Please don't feel overwhelmed. The tools that I'm using, I've used for a long time, and sometimes I may feel that the UI is very user-friendly, but from the perspective of someone first using a tool, it might not be the case, and you may just need to spend some time looking through the UI and getting to know all of the information. But for the most part, it's something that you pick up with time and it's not as daunting as it may first feel like. So please sit back and relax, because I'm going to take this in a very relaxed pace. I'm going to talk about keyword research without trying to overwhelm everyone. So just be in the mindset that you want to learn something from this, but if you don't understand something completely, you will have the presentation slides and this video will be available on YouTube afterwards, so you can always rewatch and try and understand something that you may not have completely understood first time round. So let's kick off the presentation with some definitions, just so we're all on the same page with what keyword research is and exactly what it means for SEO, because obviously we're looking at it from an SEO perspective. So Search Engine Journal defined keyword research as analyzing and researching what keywords to use in your content to fulfill your user's need. And I think it's really important to mention that fulfilling your user's need is the main goal of SEO and content in general, because our websites, our services, our companies are all there to fulfill a user's need. But a lot of times people get mixed up in the idea that SEO is for search engines and you need to get rankings, so you need to write for a search engine. But if your content is not there to fulfill a user's need, then there's no reason why you should have that content. So when doing keyword research, keep in mind that it's your user first and a search engine second, because if you write for your user, and you see it a lot with all of the big competitors and industries, if you write for your user, other people will find that content, they'll link to that content, you'll get a better domain authority, and your ranking will grow a lot more organically than if you write for the search engines and hope that you will get ranking without really creating valuable content for your users. And then keyword research, it matters hugely in SEO, not just because you should be writing for your user, but it also gives you a good snapshot into what your users are thinking, what they're searching for, what's trending in your user's mind. And it helps you identify really good ideas to try with new content, new products, new forms of content, just from doing quick keyword research. I found it a lot in my everyday job that doing keyword research actually opens up a completely different avenue and a way of thinking about how your users interact with your company and your product that can turn into a completely different strategy, a completely different campaign. And it really does help when looking into the future when you do keyword research. But also the keywords that you identified through doing this research, it helps search engines to understand the content, because you have to remember that a search engine is a computer, it's not a human brain. So it doesn't read content the way that we do. It needs certain signals for it to understand what this content is about, who this content is for, and why this content is relevant. So when you do keyword research, you identify related keywords all within a group, within a bucket, that when you write content with all of those keywords within it, a search engine can better understand what the content is about, because you have more than one keyword that is talking about a specific piece of content. So you'll find that keyword-rich content is not content that is based around one keyword. It's based around a bucket of keywords that are closely related, and that search engines can better understand the relevance behind that content. So to help talk through keyword research, I always find personally that using an example through storytelling really helps me quickly grasp the content or the topic that I'm trying to learn about. So for this presentation, I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to create a story, and I'm going to tell it from the perspective of someone doing keyword research, in the hope that being able to understand keyword research within everyday life, you can better understand the topic. And when you go away today, you'll have a better understanding of how you can apply keyword research to your business. So for this example, we're going to use Laura's Flower Shop. And for me, this is 100% made up. Laura's Flower Shop does not exist to my understanding, to my knowledge. And for the purpose of the presentation, please don't think this as an actual entity. It is just, it is just an example for our notes. So let's look at the story of Laura's Flower Shop. Laura's Flower Shop was opened by Laura and Frank in the 1960s and has been passed on to Maeve, their eldest daughter, on their retirement. The shop is based in Dublin city centre and has always been busy because of the popularity it has. But in recent years, business has slowed down and competitors have moved online. And Laura's Flower Shop has followed suit, launching a website 2 years ago. But Maeve, the owner, does not see a huge uplift in sales through using this form of communication with the customers. The designer of the website have mentioned that in order to get noticed online, creating content for your user, and he uses the word keyword-rich content, can really help users find you online and choose you over competitors. And it's also important to have a social media presence. But all of this is completely alien to Maeve. She inherited the business from her parents. She hasn't really got any idea as to what keyword-rich content is. So she turns to Google in order to find all of this information out. So the first step Maeve finds to uncover information about keywords is on Google is that when she does the research, that Google's Search Console is the first tool that seems to be prevalent within doing keyword research. And Maeve remembers that her web developer did open a Search Console account for her website when it went live 2 years ago. And as her research tells her that it's a good place to start, Maeve reaches out to get login access to get all of the information around performance within Google's Search Console. From the screenshot here, Maeve can see immediately the first 3 search terms that people have gotten to her website through involve flower delivery. And then when she thinks about it, on her website, there's only really one mention of delivery, and that's on her homepage, which reads, "We deliver your flowers to you." She jots down the idea to create a page on flower delivery, mentioning where the shop delivers to and what to keep in mind when ordering flowers for delivery, because she feels that if a lot of users are getting to her website through flower delivery and she's not giving enough information about flower delivery, it's probably a good topic to talk about in order for users to feel that their need is fulfilled on her website when they arrive there through flower delivery. So while doing research, she also hears about Google Trends. And Google Trends is a great tool in order to identify potential keywords, related keywords, and also trends within keywords for anyone to write about. So she visits trends.google.com. And the first thing she does is enter 2 keywords that she thinks will really help in her research when trying to find keyword-rich content, and that is flowers and flower shop. And you can see that the first 2 arrows in this slide show where she's entered those search terms. Next, she selects her country, which is Ireland, as she only sells flowers to Ireland. And then finally, she decides that she wants to select the past 5 years of data in order to find out if there's any trends. And the second 2 arrows on the second row within the slide show where she has made those selections. So now she is presented with this graph of information, and it can be overwhelming. But after spending a couple of seconds looking at it, Maeve has identified that there are 5 spikes in the graph that coincide with February every year for the last 5 years. Now, Maeve does a bit of digging, and because she works in a flower shop, she discovers that Valentine's Day is in February. It's on February 14th. And the spikes that we notice here are actually all coinciding with February the 14th, the week of Valentine's Day every single year. So Maeve jots down that Valentine's Day flowers is obviously a good topic to write about as well on her flower shop website. But Maeve also noticed that there is a second spike in search volume for flowers within this graph, and it happens quite close to the Valentine's Day spike. So Maeve does a bit of digging, and after a while she actually uncovers that, oh, of course, Mother's Day falls on a different Sunday every year in Ireland, but it's always near Valentine's Day. A quick Google search corroborates the dates that indeed Mother's Day falls within the week of the spike straight after Valentine's Day. And again, Maeve jots down that it could be a good idea to write about Mother's Day flowers on her flower shop blog. So that's quite easily, just using one tool, she has come up with 2 content ideas that are very important for her customers, or is very important to what she perceives her customers want to hear about. So now Maeve has 3 ideas for content at her disposal, but she doesn't really know what to do next. Should she keep doing more research and coming up with different topics? Should she start writing about one of these topics? Or maybe she's missing another step in the process. To be clear, up until now, everything that we have outlined, all of this research is only the beginning of keyword research. The next step now is to actually choose one of the topics and start doing keyword research to write that piece of content that your user wants to engage with, but also a piece of content that Google wants to rank. Now, Maeve has moved from square 1 to square 2, and this is actually where it gets really fun, but also confusing, as there's a lot of information to sift through. So if something isn't clear, please do drop a comment and I'll try to clarify things as we go along. So Maeve decides that she wants to write about Mother's Day flowers. She wants to write about Mother's Day flowers for many different reasons, but the first and foremost one is the fact that Mother's Day is coming up in 2 weeks' time. So it's probably the most timely thing to talk about. And she hopes that through writing a piece of content about Mother's Day flowers, she will get more users onto her website, which would equal more sales in the long run. So after doing a bit of research into the next step in keyword research, she comes up with 2 different tools that she could possibly use to go into the niche of Mother's Day flowers. And these are Google Keyword Planner and Ubersuggest. The 2 tools are completely free, and they give keyword ideas with their monthly search volume, which is what we want to look at next. And monthly search volume is basically how Maeve will identify high volume search terms to include within her article. For this presentation, we're going to look at Google Keyword Planner, but Ubersuggest is also a good tool to use for this type of research. So I definitely recommend, after the presentation, looking through both and figuring out which one you would prefer. I do find that the UI of both tools are really easy to get used to. So after spending 10 to 20 minutes on each one, you will probably have figured out which one is your favorite. So she's decided that Google Keyword Planner is what she wants to use. And here's what the dashboard looks like. It is a lot of information to take in, and it's definitely something that is quite daunting. But in Google Keyword Planner, in the keyword ideas box, Maeve types in the first term that comes to mind if she were to Google flowers to buy on Mother's Day, and that's Mother's Day flowers. She starts thinking, oh God, what is average monthly search? What is competition? What is ad share? Like, what does all of this information mean? And how could she possibly start choosing search terms that her users want to read about and that Google wants to rank her for? So I'm going to make it a little bit easier by going through the UI just from the perspective of SEO, as opposed to like giving an overview of everything you see here, because a lot of information within Google Keyword Planner is for paid advertising on Google. It's a PPC, so it's not relevant to SEO for what we're doing here. So I just want to highlight the important elements from an SEO perspective, so you don't feel like the tool itself is too complicated to use. So first is average monthly searches. And average monthly searches is hugely important for keyword planning, but it basically means that Google has collected all of the search information for a specific term over a year and has divided it by 12 in order to get the average. So for Mother's Day flowers, they have taken all of the searches that any person within a certain location has made over 12 months of the year and divided that by 12 and has come up with an average monthly search volume of 100 to 1,000 monthly searches. This is a really important tool because, a really important metric because it tells you how popular a search term is. If we look at the search terms here below Mother's Day flowers, for the ideas, you get flowers for mom, which has a monthly search volume of 10 to 100, so it's less than Mother's Day flowers. If you were to decide if you wanted to write a piece of content with a main keyword of Mother's Day flowers, you would expect to get more clicks and more traffic from that keyword as opposed to mother flowers for mom, or even any of the keywords below your search term idea. Next is competition. And competition is a way of telling you how popular a keyword is for advertisers, because we're on a PPC platform, a paid advertising platform. So it's important to, from a keyword perspective, it's important to understand how competitive a keyword is when it comes up in search terms for paid, because paid advertisement comes before organic search. And depending on how many ads show up before the organic, your organic results, it will show how hard or how easy it is for you to get noticed, even if you're in one of the top organic results within Google. And then finally, just to note that ad impression, top of page bid, low and high, these last three columns are PPC related. They're not SEO related, and they're not really important for keyword research unless you really want to go into the nuts and bolts of something. So we're not going to look at these at all during this presentation. But now to get back to our story of Maeve and her flower shop. So now Maeve is more confident looking at the information once she knows what average monthly search is, and once she knows what competition is, and that she knows that the last three columns are not information that she needs to pay attention to. So it's less information that she needs to actually look at, and it makes her feel more confident and happy with the information that has been thrown at her. So she decides to sort through the data by search volume and chooses some of the keywords that she likes. And now she decides to put it into her own table instead of getting all of the information mixed up within all of the keywords in Google Keyword Planner that she doesn't want to use. So looking at the list of terms, she slowly goes through the keywords, picking out the ones that she finds interesting or that she finds easiest to write about, but paying attention to search volume. She doesn't want anything between 10 and 100 unless it's a search term that she really thinks she wants within her piece of content. She arranges them on the table so that she knew search volume straight away. And then she really, she stares at the content. Like, what can you do with all of these keywords? Why does volume and competition come into it when you can't make sense of the keywords themselves? Well, this is what happens next. And this is where keyword research is such a huge and fun field to pay attention to, because Maeve starts to notice that each keyword could easily be a standalone paragraph. Flowering plants and arrangements are great ideas to pick up for a mother, but if your mother loves gardening, a gift of her favorite flower could be a better option. Maybe gifts and ideas are different things. Maybe spring flowers are something that you really want to talk about because obviously Mother's Day falls in spring. So before her eyes, Maeve actually notices that the article itself is written with all of the keywords that she's picked out from Google Keyword Planner. And her article layout is as follows. A brief introduction, her first paragraph, Mother's Day ideas, that's one of her keywords. Flowering plants, that's another one of her ideas. Keyword ideas, flower arrangements. So she can see that all of her keywords are easily turning into headers for the pieces of content that she could write. And this is her finished product. After slaving over it for a few hours, Maeve has decided that All of her paragraphs are nicely laid out to have snippets of content within them, but also why not put some images? Why not give the user insight into what they want to buy by giving them nice, bright pieces of content? And to say that Maeve is a pro is an understatement, because she's even decided to embed her Instagram photos into the article. She's decided that not only is she going to do keyword rich content, but she is listening to her website developer and she's putting in social media. She is linking to her Instagram from her blog. She is paying attention to what her users want. And she's really giving it her all in order to create content that fulfills her users' need. And it's important to get a good flow in an article. So during the planning and keyword phase, you should really try different layouts and consider different formats. So maybe it's a list that you want to put, or maybe it's short pieces of information with a really helpful image, like what Maeve has done. But the most important thing is that the user finds the content valuable and relevant. You may find that although your information is keyword rich, it doesn't provide value for the right reasons. And that after a spike in traffic for the first couple of weeks of creating content and a good ranking, you start to decrease because people spend less time on your website. They don't get to the end of a paragraph, let alone the end of your piece of content. They don't share it with people because they don't find it useful. So if you've chosen a topic to write about, but cannot seem to find a good flow to the content, it's definitely a good idea to try new tools in order to find better keywords. And I always find that if I feel that the piece of content that I want to write is relevant, that the keywords are hugely important, but I can't seem to find something, an outline or a flow to an article, that Answer the Public, which is a free online resource, is the best tool you could possibly get to giving you good ideas for information. So Answer the Public is basically an online resource which pulls different questions that people have asked about a topic into one useful web page. You can plan your content into a who, what, when, where, why, and how article through using all of the information from Answer the Public, which is a great either introductory or in-depth article. So regardless of if you want your blog to be high level or very niche, Answer the Public can give you the information you need. It's a great resource to help brainstorming tough subjects. It's 100% free, and it's so easy to use that after spending 5 minutes on it, you can definitely understand the information that you expect from it. And you could spend hours coming up with topic ideas and content layouts for different things from it. So this is the end of the introduction to keyword research. And it is basically a method that I use to create new content on a daily basis. It's not hugely scientific, but it's hugely representative of how easy it can be to create content yourself. If you practice 3 or 4 times, you will start to get a flow for yourself, and you will start to identify layouts for the pieces of content that you want to write. If you have understood everything mentioned in these slides, you are definitely ready to go on to the next step, which is where we're going to deep dive into how keyword research can get you more ranking through zero-click SERPs and competitor analysis. But as I said earlier, this is recorded. You can look over it again. So if there's a certain part of this presentation that you don't particularly understand, just give the video another look over. Ask me any questions that you want, but please don't feel like you're not understanding something so you can't do it, because it's definitely the case that you can. You just need to give yourself more time to get used to it. So now, once all of the information that I've walked through comes naturally to you, and you've written a few articles, just to make sure that you have your process completely down to a T, the next step is to look at SERP, to look at all of the information that Google gives to anyone who searches. and to really understand what happens on the page. And a SERP, just to define it, it's down in the corner of the slide, is a search engine results page. And it's basically when you put in a search query into any search engine, the SERP is what displays as the results on the page. The most common search engine, obviously, is Google, and their SERP comprises of ads, zero-click SERP, organic SERP, local SERP, like so many different types of information. And you don't really notice it until you look at it deeper, what each one of these mean and how different people can be responsible for different elements. So obviously, if you're doing keyword research for content, you're looking at organic search. But if you're doing paid, you're doing keyword research for an advertisement. If you're doing local SEO, you definitely want to look at, how your main pages are keyword optimized. So there's a lot of different SERP results and a lot of different people who are responsible for them. But what I want to talk about now is the zero-click SERP. And zero-click SERPs are the results where an answer is displayed directly on top of organic search results, and where the search intent of the user is satisfied without having to click onto a website. The next slide, I'll show you an example of the SERP, but it's important to notice that there has been a lot of articles and presentations talking about how companies have lost real estate to zero-click SERPs, and it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, and it's a very tough topic to discuss. I'll definitely include a couple of resources just to talk if you're interested in zero-click SERPs. But from a keyword research perspective, the 4 elements mentioned on this slide are what we want to talk about from a written content perspective. And written content is very different to video and image content, which also have zero-click SERPs themselves. We won't touch on them, but what I want to mention here about zero-click SERPs is that when you do keyword research, you may notice that a keyword has high search volume, and you work really hard in order to get a really good ranking on it, and you may be within the first, the top 3 search results for a specific keyword, but you may not find you're getting a lot of click-through to your website. And it may not be that the content that you're giving to the customer, it may not be that it doesn't fulfill the need of the customer. It may be that a zero-click SERP is displaying for that search result as well. So less people feel the need to click onto your website because they're being given the answer there and then without having to do any more research and any more clicks. So from the perspective of branding, zero-click SERPs are a great branding exercise. And if you feel that you can earn a zero-click SERP, it's definitely something that you should spend some time on, but it can be a lot of work for a company. So the first 2 zero-click SERPs are featured snippets and people also asked. And here is an example. The first box here is an example of a featured snippet when you search for dropshipping versus affiliate marketing. It's in a paragraph format, but featured snippets can also be in a list format and a table format. If you pay attention to the next time you do a couple of searches, you may find that you're getting a lot of different featured snippets in different formats, and these are the 3 formats that you can get them in. But there's a lot of talk around featured snippets and how to actually earn one, because Google doesn't give you that information. They don't want to spoon feed you information, because they want you to figure out things yourself from the perspective of giving the user what they want. But then SEMrush did a really good study last year. It was a huge study where they looked at featured snippets from their database of websites, just to find out the consistent elements across websites that earn featured snippets quite regularly. And there were some really interesting findings that are both confusing but interesting and weird. Because SEMrush found that articles with a Fleisch reading scale of a 6th to 7th grader, if you use WordPress, I think Yoast and WordPress, it's like 70 to 80 score, you're more likely to show up as a featured snippet. And if you don't know what a Fleisch reading scale is, it's basically just a standard of reading used in English language, which gauges the age of what a reader reads at. And normally a Fleisch reading scale doesn't come into play when you're doing keyword research or content creation, unless you're very honed in on your target audience. But SEMrush actually found that you're more inclined to get a featured snippet if a 6th to a 7th grader reading level is actually relevant or is present within your writing. I think other findings that they found was if you had a total of 12 images or 33 outbound links, you're more inclined to have a featured snippet. And then obviously if you have a good domain authority, so if a lot of external websites are linking to your piece of content, you're more inclined to be to rank for a featured snippet. But you have to kind of keep in mind that all of these things are great. All of these findings are brilliant. It's really interesting information, but it's more important that the content is there before you start optimizing for a featured snippet. So you can include 12 images and 33 outbound links, but if the content is minimal and if the content is not valuable, you're not going to get the featured snippet. So the best thing to do here is to create the piece of content, make it as valuable, and make sure that it fulfills a user's need, and then start optimizing for a featured snippet. I also want to mention here, just because featured snippets is something that has been in the news from an SEO perspective for quite a while. There's a lot of information there, but Rank Ranger, which is an SEO agency, actually did their own featured snippets study, not from the perspective of how to get a featured snippet, but to give more insight into the featured snippet algorithm itself. And if you're interested in finding out more about featured snippets, this is definitely, it's a must-read survey, and I'll provide a link to it at the end of the presentation, which you'll receive tomorrow. But if you want to learn more about it, Rank Ranger is definitely a good place to start. Also highlighted in this slide is the people also asked box, which normally shows up with a featured snippet. And it's, the best way to describe it is probably that it's an extra resource after a featured snippet, just in case the featured snippet doesn't answer your question. It's also a good way of getting noticed and is a good branding technique, but obviously it's not as popular as a featured snippet because you have to click the down arrow on each of them to find an answer. If you're interested in ranking for people also asked terms, the best strategy I have found is to take something that's already ranking for a people also asked term. So here, how much money can you make as an affiliate marketer? If you take that, pop it into your piece of content and write a paragraph of 40 to 60 words to answer that question explicitly, you can then be in the running to win that people also asked paragraph off of who already has it. I just wanted to mention also that currency exchange is a zero-click SERP. It's really interesting. It's really easy. So if you type in what currency you have to what currency you want to exchange it to, and then you'll come up with this box where you can enter in your currency and find out the exchange. You don't have to do as much clicking as if the search results came up with 10 different tools in order to get the currency exchange. You have to find which one is the most up to date. You find out your currency exchange, and then there's a lot more clicks involved, whereas zero-click SERPs make sure that you get the answer as quick as possible. And then also dictionary definitions is a good one to know. So here, if you Google a specific term and after it have meaning or definition, it will come up with a dictionary definition of what that is. And sometimes it includes antonyms and synonyms, so you don't feel like you need to go onto a website in order to do more research. You're getting a broad and a niche understanding of what the definition you are looking for is, so that it does apply to you and you don't need to click on anything else to get the answer. I wanted to mention these as examples, but again, zero-click SERPs are quite hard to get, and for currency exchange and dictionary definitions, they're pretty much impossible to win, so I wouldn't put any effort into it as a strategy. Most of the time, these are Google tools, so Google is going to rank them over everyone else. It's a good to know thing, but again, don't try and win it from Google. So I know this is a lot of information, but I do want to touch on competitor analysis. And competitor analysis from a keyword perspective, a keyword research perspective, is slightly different to it's slightly different to SEO competitor analysis, because keyword analysis is looking at a piece of content or a potential piece of content and the keywords that you want to rank for within that content. Whereas SEO competitor analysis is looking at your whole website, your whole service offering, and you're looking at competitors and what they're doing. So keyword research is a lot more niche. It's a lot more in-depth in order to understand how your piece of content can outrank those on the first page of Google. So you need to look at if a competitor is ranking for a keyword that you want to rank for, you need to look at their content and what they're doing with that piece of content in order to get a high position. So look at who's ranking for the top 5 positions on the first page of Google. What content, what format do they have their content in? Is it an infographic? Is it a video? Is it long form content? What's involved in it? How many paragraphs? What kind of content? What kind of topics? Are these the keywords that you want to rank for? Or are they using a slightly different perspective and a slightly different way of going about the topic? Do you think that their topic is a little bit too niche for what you want to say? And then are they actually ranking for a featured snippet, and in what format? Can you replicate that within your content? And then you need to move to create that content. You need to try and replicate to a certain extent the content that you find in the top 5 positions. Don't duplicate that content. You don't want duplicate content on your website. You don't want to plagiarize someone else's information, but you want to take their ideas and make them yours. So you want to add more value by having a different perspective. You want to make sure that what you're giving to your user is more than what your competitors have given to your user before. You want to become the go-to resource for that piece of content. So when your user searches for something, they know that they will get the right answer from you, but they'll also get all of the understanding from you as well. So from a keyword research competitor analysis, there's a lot to take into account. But it's also it's important to understand that for competitor analysis from a keyword research perspective, you might actually be looking at different competitors to your main competitors, because obviously there could be websites out there that specialize in niche content around a certain group of keywords that you have never noticed before. So when you're looking at competitor analysis from a keyword planning perspective, you need to take into account that you might see new names and you might be onboarded to a completely different industry for a keyword. And you need to then start thinking about how you can outdo those competitors as well as the competitors that you are aware of as well. So we're getting on to our final slide now. And this is just tools. And I mentioned that I wanted to talk about free and paid tools, because keyword planning is something that every business should do if they have any section of their website that they update regularly. But sometimes paid tools is just not an option. You might be a small 1 or 2 person company, so free tools are the only option that you have. And you're definitely not losing out by using a free tool, because there are so many out there. The ones that we've used in this presentation are Google Search Console, Google Trends, Google Keyword Planner, and I mentioned Answer the Public. They're 100% free. They give you all of the search volume, they give you the competition, and that's what you need in order to start your keyword planning and research. But also there's tools like Ubersuggest and Keywords Everywhere that give the same information but in a slightly different UI. It's easy to find your way around them. It's not hard to decipher the information once you spend a couple of minutes looking around it and getting used to it. So if your option is a free keyword planning tool, definitely check these all out. The Google tools are ones that you need to sign up to, but you don't have to pay for them. So obviously you're getting information from your website. They're a lot more relevant, and you can do long-term SEO planning through Google Search Console and Google Keyword Planner. The other ones are standalone tools that you will search for a specific keyword term and branch out from there, completely separate to your domain. The paid keyword planning tools are the most popular ones are Ahref, Moz, HubSpot, and SEMrush. There are thousands of other paid tools, and they provide the same information as a free tool, but then obviously they have add-ons. So for all of these, you're paying for extra services. So Ahrefs is great for competitor analysis. It gives you an idea of what your competitors are ranking for and gives you more keyword ideas relating to your industry as a whole. Moz is great for local, and it's great for link building as well. So is SEMrush great for link building. It gives you an idea of potential domains that you can outreach to in order to create a good link building strategy to promote the keyword rich content that you've just created. And HubSpot is a great way of understanding inbound marketing and how content and keyword planning can push out to the rest of your marketing, your inbound marketing and sales as a whole. So definitely, if you have the budget for a paid tool, check them all out. Check out any kind of paid tool that you can get as a free trial and figure out which one best represents what your company is trying to achieve. So that's everything about keyword planning. It's a lot of information, and I do understand that, especially if you haven't done a lot of keyword research in the past, but it's definitely something that you can get a good understanding of if you spend a little bit of time just going through the first couple of slides and writing a few pieces of content while doing the basic keyword research. I have a few more minutes if anyone has any questions. I have checked the chat, and I don't know if I'm updating enough, but I haven't had any questions up until now. But I will send these slides on tomorrow for you to look over, but also I'll have all of the resources that I mentioned in the slides at the end of the presentation as well. But if you're interested in keyword research or content, and you have a lot of content on your website as it is, you don't want to write any new content, there is a great webinar happening tomorrow, run by Search Engine Journal, which is content cleansing and why and how you must improve or remove old content. So if you find that you have a lot of content on your website and you don't really know what to do with it, this webinar is going to talk to you about how content can hurt your website, but how you can also use your old content and repurpose it in order to get more traffic to your website, get better ranking, and just basically not to waste the content that you've already created. I'm definitely going to log in. Danny is a long-time SEO. He has done so many different studies and so many different, he has so many different clients that he's helped with their ranking that it's definitely one of my go-to resources when I want to find out information on content strategy. So yeah, if we don't have any questions, I'm not going to keep anyone on their wonderful evening, but please do drop me a line if you have any questions. I'll be sending all of the resources out tomorrow morning, so please do look over the presentation, and if you have any further questions, do let me know. So I have 2 questions here. So if I would like to become a reference for a specific subject and thinking to create wikis about that subject, what could be a strategy about that? So if you want to become an expert on a specific subject and create wikis about a subject, it's probably a good idea to find out what competitors are doing on that subject already, like what blogs are out there that talk about it and how you can have a different stance on it. But I find that if you want to become an expert on a specific subject and there's a lot of content already written about it, it's quite hard to rank for written content alone on that subject because you have so much competition. So you could look at either doing it from guest posting position, where you write a piece of content on your website and then you write articles around that piece of content that you can then go to other websites and get it published on in order to link back to your website. Or you can go the route of doing videos, infographics, or a different format of content as well as written content in order to get as much real estate on Google as possible. I can try and dig into it in a bit more detail and send on some good examples of how companies have somehow gotten ahead of their competitors in a short period of time and outranked people from written content, and I can get back to you on that. And then Owen has asked, can you describe a little how useful you find Google Trends and why? I personally love Google Trends, especially, well, depending on your industry, you can find out a lot to do with trends and seasonal practices in your industry. And a lot of people are not aware of certain trends that happen on a yearly basis within their industry. And all they simply have to do is look at Google Trends. So for instance, one of my clients actually found that they had a huge drop in traffic coming up to Valentine's Day, and they couldn't figure out why. But like, they didn't know it was Valentine's Day. They just saw a huge dip in traffic and started to panic and thought, we're losing traffic for no reason at all. But then when you looked on Google Trends, you actually noticed that a couple of the keywords, or a lot of the keywords that they actually wanted to rank for, dropped every single year on Valentine's Day. So it wasn't something that was happening this year. It was something that happened across many different years. So Google Trends was a great tool then in order to identify a seasonality aspect that a company wasn't able to identify before now. And definitely if you're a new company and you don't have historical data from your own website and your own domain, Google Trends is the only place that you can really go to find that information out. So from my perspective, Google Trends is not just important from a keyword research perspective, but it's good from a historical perspective in order to be able to build a good strategy, not just for SEO or content, but from a sales perspective as well. If you know that a dip in sales or a dip in traffic is going to happen at a certain time of the year, you can then plan ahead and you can know that, okay, we're going to get a dip now, but we're also going to get a rise in 2 or 3 weeks from that. So that's where we're going to make up for that dip in traffic. And then Gordon asked, does Google penalize your ranking then if your content isn't regularly updated? And if yes, how often should I update the website content? So Google doesn't necessarily penalize you for not updating your content. It just means that if you rank quite high for a piece of content now and you don't update it over the next couple of months, Google is going to see the new content from your competitors who are publishing their content after you as being more relevant and up to date. So they're going to move you down in the rankings only because your content is now no longer the most relevant and the most up-to-date piece of content. There's not necessarily a timeline of how often you should update your website content. Different industries differ because obviously different industries move quite quickly, so you can publish content on a daily basis and it still be very relevant. But then if you're in an industry that's slow paced and all of your competitors have content calendars that are very slow and sluggish, then you don't need to update your website as much. So it's really down to the individual industry and how your competitors and how you yourself create content, that kind of, it then tells you how often you need to update your content. In your opinion, how important is image alt tag and name for SEO? I personally think that image alt tags are hugely important from many different perspectives, not just from an SEO perspective. I would always use image alt tags because there are so many studies and case studies out there that have shown the importance of image alt tags. I'll try include a couple of case studies in the information that I send tomorrow, but there has been a good correlation between image alt tagging helping your ranking. And then also, if you use image alt tags, you're more inclined to show up for an image search as well as content search. So you're helping your real estate by using image alt tagging. When is the next algorithm coming? I really don't want to see a next algorithm update in anytime soon. There's been way too much happening. That's a great question that no one wants to hear about. So yeah, I'm going to finish up now just because we have been here for an hour. But thank you everyone for attending. I will send out the presentation slides tomorrow morning. If you do have any questions, I will provide my email address. You can always reach out to me over meetup.com, over LinkedIn, over Twitter. I'm always happy to help. And if there are any questions, or even if you just want to talk about something that you seem to be stuck on from an SEO perspective, I run SEO clinics, so just 15-minute quick chats. If you want to subscribe to one of those, I'll send the information tomorrow as well. And I'd really like to connect with people and get to know what people are thinking about. So thanks everyone and have a great evening.